The Sea Devils is Chibnall at his worst. It's entirely plot-filled, even though the actual plot points are basically incomprehensible, and that's not good.
That's not good.
On top of that, he continues to bait the fandom with something extraordinarily close to tokenism representation, which, that's not
good.
There's so little substance to the Yaz-Doctor relationship that it's baffling that this entire episode didn't just focus on them. Like, this is the second last episode. I know for a fact the Jodie fandom wants Yaz and the Doctor to get it on.
You two should kiss!
But Chibnall is just failing to deliver any genuine connection between these characters. Yaz is such a poorly developed character that you could make a 9-hour video on how bad she is and call it, I don't know, The Tragedy of Yaz. Never mind, that already exists. Now, guys, really? Like, I'm all for more people engaging with Doctor Who in a critical manner. However, a 9-hour video discussion? Come the fuck off it. But like, 9 hours. Let that sink in. That's not
good.
You didn't want to maybe, like, cut it down to, like, a solid hour? Like, I love the effort, but let me maybe just summarize it for everyone else at home. Yasmin Khan isn't a very good character. Right, so with the knowledge that a 9-hour video exists devoted to the character of Yasmin Khan, I think this perhaps calls for some brevity for my video. Let's not drag this out. I know brevity in contrast to 9 hours is insane. However, here's the core of my issues with the Sea Devils. The previous episode, Eve of the Daleks, was interesting. It was very much watchable, and you could critique and present meaningful observations. That review has very little fat in it, because where the Eve of the Daleks goes wrong is not entirely rooted in failing the basics. Sea Devils, in contrast, is much closer to just straight up bad and lazy. Or perhaps rushed is a nicer word for it. It's not hard to find where the episode goes wrong, nor is it insightful to showcase that. Thus, I'm going to try to keep it brief and hit the main points, which should hopefully make it clear to you. The episode begins when a Sea Devil is awakened by a Chinese pirate queen. The Sea Devil seemingly kills off most of the village, but don't worry, the Doctor and fam nonchalantly show up for some light-hearted fun.
Mr. Where is it? Lord, where is it?
And then Scooby-Doo traps.
How did we...
What?
Yeah.
Then, something really crazy shows up. You guys aren't gonna believe this. A flying pirate ship. It's so crazy that the Doctor, who has lived many lifetimes in space with a time machine, can't believe a flying ship is possible.
That's impossible.
Really? More impossible than anything else that happens in this show? The Doctor's never seen a flying ship before.
Yeah. It just can't be real. Now, the Sea Devil hilariously escapes, doing like a Mario jump. Look at this goofy shit. And our characters are left to wonder what is going on. Okay, big picture. In the first 10-ish minutes, the episode establishes some plot threads. Now, these include the Pirate Queen and her treasure hunt, the son who was connected to the treasure by his father, the Sea Devils themselves, the Doctor's earring being pulled towards something out of nowhere, plus the skipping rocks, the Yaz Doctor situation, Dan's satanic thirst for murder, And for good measure, a giant sea serpent monster, because why not? Now, most of these threads will be concluded in a convoluted, confusing manner by the end of the episode, except for one. Take a guess which one. Now, if you said the giant sea monster would just fuck off halfway through the episode, you win! Take some points. Now, if you had trouble following the rest of the threads and just what was happening on the screen, you're not the only one. The Sea Devils has awful continuity. Is a part of the reason this episode is so confusing. When I say continuity, I mean the actual step-by-step logic of moving characters from event to event. Now, the editing is kind of an issue here. However, like most Chibnall episodes, it's the poor writing that lets it down. For example, the episode needs to split the characters up. To do this, Dan and his friend need to get to this boat. This is a storytelling problem that could be explained quite easily. Perhaps Dan and friends steal a rowing boat and get abroad that way. Or maybe they convince the Pirate Queen earlier in the episode to join her crew. There quite literally is a scene of them convincing her several moments later. With this in mind, the writers decided the best way to get Dan, goofy old funny boy Dan, aboard this pirate ship was to get him to swim. Just look at how far away it is. They had Dan swim like the goddamn Viking Hamlet. And no joke, the next scene we have with Dan is him showing up on the boat all wet. Get the fuck out of here.
Or Dan falling and swim up to the ship.
Half the time, they hardly even bother to give an answer. Okay, right here, Yaz and the Doc are in the TARDIS. The sea floor below them collapses, but apparently Yaz can't spot this until she lies on the floor of the TARDIS?
She had to get down to see that.
Huh? What follows is the TARDIS gets eaten by a sea monster that we'll never see again. The next scene we see Yaz and the Doc are stuck in an underwater base. Now I, like most people, assumed that the monster swallowed the TARDIS, or perhaps the underwater base is inside the monster. It's not until much later in the episode that you see the size of the base and realize they can't be inside the monster, but it's too late. It's already confusing and poorly constructed.
I don't think they were in the belly of the worm. I think they were below the fake ocean floor.
Another example. The Doctor and Yaz say they need to go to a control center.
Yes, with me.
It cuts, and when we come back, they're just at the control center.
Control course this way. This is gonna be tricky.
There's not a single scene in between or a quick shot of them sneaking around the underwater base. They're just there, and it's janky, it feels off, it disconnects the viewer from a sense of time and location.
Never know where anyone is in this fucking show.
This could be easily fixed by moving one of Dan's or the Pirate Queen scenes to break up this edit, but they don't, and what we're left with is messy. Speaking of messy, this one is really easy to demonstrate. Just watch how many cuts are in these scenes. Way too many. Too many cuts.
They really didn't know how to do the swords. That thing is just a cut every time there's a fucking every time there's a swing.
It seems clear they didn't really prepare or storyboard these fights, and while I'm sure the editor is working under pretty rough circumstances, surely something better could have been cobbled up. There's so many insert shots of Sea Devil slashing with swords and cheeky footage doubled up and flipped. I'm not gonna linger here, but it's poor, it's badly done. Which brings us to the last and not at all unsurprising critique. The lazy run. Chibnall, Chibnall, Chibbles. You never learn. Now, Chibnall's writing is full of holes and basic failures. However, there's some particular moments that come to mind as just profanely awful. The first involves the Doc telling off the pirate captain for somewhat justifiably killing off a Sea Devil.
You didn't have to kill him.
They took my ship.
What makes it egregious is hardly 2 minutes later, Dan, using a sword the Doctor gave him, massacres 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Sea Devils and shrugs it off like nothing.
You should meet me, Mom.
If this kind of hypocrisy wasn't due course for a regular Chibnall episode, you'd think something had gone wrong with the production. Finally, as usual, the solution to the story is awful. It is such a Chibnall cliche to have a goddamn bomb just blow everything up. Jesus Christ. It's even got the certified Chibnall countdown.
I just lessened the time. 50 seconds.
It wouldn't be classic Chibnall if an old man character couldn't literally appear out of nowhere to sacrifice himself and save the Doctor.
Didn't she? She always just blows it up, and he just disappeared. The amount of times that the Doctor just blows it up. The Doctor never does it. I've reverse engineered their own thing to blow themselves up. Someone else volunteered. And then somebody else goes, I'll press the button.
Yeah. And that's that. The episode ends with a poorly CGI'd rock skipping shot that looks like trash. And that's where we leave the second last episode of Chibnall's run. Fucking hell.
What? The fuck? They just ended up skipping rocks? What? Oh, insane. Insane.
Sea Devils is a disaster. It defies logic, it's entirely messy, and why it's broken isn't very interesting. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is just bad, boring, and confusing. The story feels like a high school creative writing assessment that was left to the night before it was due. Ancient Chinese pirates! Sea monsters that want to flip the Earth's magnetic field! Garbage. However, we are entirely close to this being over for good. No more Chibnall. No more. No more. If I'm looking at this correctly, there's only one more left.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe.